Hey guys, welcome to a weekly story time. If you like these story times, give this video a like, leave me a comment, let me know what you think down below, and subscribe if you're not already. All of those things really do help us out here on YouTube. And if you want to help support us, help us continue to do what we do here, the best place to do that is over on Patreon. So a link to our Patreon is down below. On this week's story time, I want to talk about a spanking that I received a couple of weeks ago now, and that is a reset. Now, in our punishment structure, we have corrections, we have punishments, we have maintenance, and we have a reset, but it's the same structure as a punishment. It's just going through our punishment system without having explicitly earned a punishment, if that makes sense. Basically, a reset is there to function to kind of get us back on track when things start to feel off, when we start to feel like disconnected, when I start to feel disconnected to my role, when I kind of need that boost of motivation. We can go through a reset because it just puts us back on track for where we need to be, where we want to be, and kind of gives us that boost in the right direction of growth. And so we had kind of come off of life being really busy, things feeling pretty just hectic, I guess you would say, and I was feeling really disconnected from Coda, and I was actually feeling pretty disconnected from my role. I was feeling just uneasy. I was feeling uneasy in my role, and I just needed that reconnection to Coda, the reconnection to our dynamic, and the boost of motivation to start to be soft and submissive and responsive to Coda again. Things had not gotten as off as they have in the past, but I definitely felt that kind of going in that direction, and I didn't like it. I didn't want to end up completely off the rails. And what really solidified it for me was I started to feel like just those seeds of resentment starting to kind of well up inside of me, where I was starting to become resentful towards my role and kind of resentful towards Coda trying to exercise authority over me. And what I mean by that is that he would ask me to do something as simple as, getting something for him from the next room. I was starting to be resentful towards that. I was starting to kind of have those seeds of just like, I don't want to. And I didn't like that within me. I didn't like that response within me. I didn't like that feeling inside of me. And I knew that if I didn't ask Coda for a reset, if I didn't ask for something drastic to reconnect to my role and to provide the motivation for growth in that area, that it was going to get worse and that things were going to go completely off the rails. It could have really been detrimental to the growth of our relationship and really detrimental to Coda's confidence, because when I get in these moods and I start pushing back, then it can really throw him off too. And so I asked him if we could do a reset the next day instead of, I think it was maintenance was what was scheduled for the next day. I said, instead of maintenance tomorrow, can we do a reset instead? And he said yes, and he didn't necessarily understand why I felt like I needed that. And so before the reset, we talked, and I talked about how I was starting to feel just these like seeds of resentment towards my role, towards serving him, which serving him is something that I do within my role. That's something that I really do find a lot of fulfillment in 99% of the time. And when these like seeds of resentment start taking place, when that starts kind of getting a foothold, that's when I go to him and ask for these more serious spankings, because that's not something that I want to have within me, because I want to serve him. I want to fulfill my role. I want to be soft towards him. I want to be submissive towards him. And when that becomes hard, I need his help to bring me back into that place. And so I explained all that to him, and then he completely understood. He completely got what needed to happen. And so we went through our punishment system, which this was the first time that we had gone through this particular system because we had just redone our systems. And so he starts with the leather paddle that we have, and he does 2 minutes on each side. And it always surprises me because the leather paddle is our least intense implement, but it always surprises me how terrible it really feels. And especially during this reset, he was using punishment intensity, and it was not easy to take. And I immediately felt this sense of kind of relief in coming under his authority. And really that was the focus of my mindset in this spanking, because every time I go into a spanking, I try to focus my mindset. If I've done something to earn the spanking, then I focus on how I was wrong, how my behavior was wrong, and I focus on the spanking being the consequence for my decision, for my behavior. When we're going through these spankings that I didn't necessarily earn, I really try to set a focus. And because of how I had been feeling, because of, just the craziness of life kind of distracting me from my role, my focus during the spanking was feeling the authority, feeling Coda's authority, feeling under his authority, and choosing to submit to it. A spanking is a really good way to have the physical manifestation of authority over you. Coda is spanking me because he has the authority to spank me. The spanking itself is a very tangible feeling of being under authority, and choosing to submit to it, putting myself into position, staying in position, accepting the physical sensation of the spanking are all really powerful acts of submission. And so a spanking is a really good place to really focus on feeling authority and choosing submission. And so that's what I was doing, and that's what I did. And so he went through the leather paddle. I was already crying. I was very emotionally connected to this particular spanking. I was feeling very much under his authority, and I was crying because I felt a sense of relief that I was starting to reconnect to his authority. I was starting to reconnect to my submission. I was also crying because I felt grieved. I felt sad that I had gotten to a place where submission was feeling hard, and I didn't like it. And I didn't want submission to feel so hard anymore. I was also crying because I really didn't like where my mentality was. And I was really just processing a lot of emotions. Now, the next implement that he uses is our TAWS, or our split strap, however you want to say that. And that is such an intense experience. And so he uses that, and he uses that for 2 minutes. And he just uses it straight across, so it's 2 minutes total. It's not per side. And just the intensity of it, because he uses it basically on my sit spot and onto my thighs. And the intensity of the feeling of that strap is just a lot. It really takes my breath away, and he is very intentional in how he delivers the strokes, to where every single one is just very well placed and is delivered with intention. And it's a lot. It's hard to take. It's hard to take, but I was just so focused on not moving, number one, because there is an expectation that I stay in place, but also I was so focused on not moving because I didn't want him to land it improperly, and I really wanted to accept the sensation, but it was a lot, and I was crying out, and the sensation of leather against your skin is just so intense, and it has such a different sensation than anything else, because it radiates. The sensation kind of like, it bites into, like it bites your skin. That's the best way I can describe the sensation, is that it feels like it's just biting, and then it just radiates the sensation, so it builds. And so after he was done with that, I was just crying. Like, I was a bawling mess. I was just totally submitted and yielded to this process. And then he did the cane, and this was the first time that he's used the cane quite like this, where he decided to go straight across, and he does that for 2 minutes from each direction. So he'll stand on my left, go straight across, and then he'll stand on my right and go straight across. And it felt so intense. It felt like he landed it so flat, to where the sensation of the cane hitting my skin went all the way across. Like, I felt every inch of that cane hitting the the target area, and the tip of the cane just was just catching my thigh in such a way that it just felt so searing. I was absolutely convinced that he was wrapping the cane around, and if you're unfamiliar, if you wrap a cane, you do risk injury to the skin, you risk the skin breaking, and so I was so convinced that he was wrapping the cane because it felt so intense. And he wasn't. He absolutely wasn't. Where the marks were left from that, it absolutely was within the safe area. He was not wrapping it. It was very well placed. It was just a lot. And so he gets through that, and I am just, I am just so submitted and yielded at that point, because during the cane itself, it was so intense that I ended up like almost getting, I had an emotional reaction that I didn't expect. I ended up like feeling like almost angry that he was spanking me so hard. That's not typically my response. I don't typically get a defensive or angry reaction to being spanked. But this time I did, and I was like, why, I felt like, why is he spanking me so hard? Doesn't he know that this really hurts? Which obviously it does, it's supposed to. And I don't know why that was my thought process. I don't know why that was my go-to, but it was something that I just took me off guard. And as he was going through the process of using the cane, because between the 2 minutes on each side, that's 4 minutes of using the cane. Through that process, I kind of like broke emotionally and was like completely yielded to it, because I realized like he's not doing this to be mean. I don't need to be defensive. I don't need to be angry about this. This is part of the process, and this is what is good for me, because this is what brings me back into submission. This is what brings me the resolve that I need, and this is what gives me the motivation to fulfill my role and do what I need to do. And so as he finished the cane, I was completely yielded to the process. He used the loop. The loop feels almost as bad as the cane. Not quite. I would say the cane is worse, but the loop feels almost as bad. And that's 2 minutes on each side as well. And so I was reactive to the pain, of course, but I was very yielded to the process. And so I was accepting the sensation of the loop. I was accepting the spanking at that point. Reactive to the pain of the process, because that is just part of the deal. But I just was very, very yielded and very under submission and very ready to fulfill my role and to do what I need to do to be soft and be submissive. And so every stroke with the loop just felt like it was just layering on top of each other. And, it surprises me that the sensation can feel so intense for so long. I never get used to the sensation of my spanking, because I think that that's a misconception, that your skin kind of goes numb, or that you kind of get used to the sensation, and then, the spanking's not effective anymore because you're just kind of going on too long. That is not my experience. The loop, every stroke of the loop felt worse than the one before. It felt very intense, very, it just felt like a lot. After the loop, he does another 2 minutes with the strap again. And again, that is a lot to take. That's a lot to handle, especially on the thigh area. That's something that I will never get used to. And it's something that will always feel pretty terrible. Now, I will say that as he is doing the strap, it is easier to stay in position for the strap than it is the cane or the loop. The sensation is very different. The strap is its own sensation, but for me, the sensation of the cane especially is a lot harder to maintain position for. It's a lot harder for me to accept and process, where the strap, it is very terrible and it's very awful, and I don't want to experience it at all, but it is a lot easier for me to stay still. And I honestly think that it's because I know that it's a flexible implement, and so I know that if I move, the likelihood of it wrapping into an area that would be terrible is higher. And so that's probably why I'm more motivated to stay still for the strap than I am for anything else. After the strap, the last 2 minutes with the strap, he does a minute on each side with our paddle, our oval, I think it's, what kind of wood is it that it, oh, curly oak or curly maple, one of those two. He does a minute on each side with that paddle, and that paddle is so intense and very, very effective, and it's a really good, like, kind of exclamation point on the entire process, and that's why he uses it last, because it kind of drives the sensation of everything else before it just deeper in, and it just creates a very even kind of sensation. He has more even coverage with the paddle. And after that was done, then the spanking was done. I cried for a long time after that spanking. I was so submitted to him. I did apologize for getting reactionary and getting defensive during him using the cane. I apologized for that because that was wrong. That was not something that I should have done. And he accepted my apology. He asked me why I had that reaction, why I had that response. And we were able to talk about it. And he was able to kind of set me straight and make sure that I understood that my place is to receive and accept, and that I need to do a better job of that, because quite frankly, that's why I asked for the reset, because I hadn't been doing a very good job of receiving and accepting his authority. And the way I received the spanking during the cane was very much representative of the fact that I had had a really hard time receiving and accepting his authority. And so he told me to do better, and I needed to do better, and I told him that I would, and I have so far. I feel like I have done a better job of receiving and accepting his authority and being under his authority and being soft and submissive towards him. So it was definitely a very powerful experience. It was definitely a very necessary experience, and it was something that I really felt was very cathartic, and it really did help drive our relationship forward. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me for this story time. It was kind of a longer one. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will talk to you next time.